back a little bit to was there a point, I don't care how far back you want to go, but was there a point in your early life where you just said, aha, this is what I want to do? And if there was, like, what was the aha? There's some point in your life, this is my life mission.
Yeah, I think it was actually back at university, and maybe even at primary school, at secondary school before that. The magic of computers. Normally traditional workers, they use their hands to make things, and I just love that a computer, you could kind of tell it to do stuff, and you're kind of building these machines.
Yeah.
And that the scale of that just is hugely exciting. And I remember back in the 80s, there was a kind of a new set of sort of business processes called information engineering, which allowed you to model businesses on diagrams so you could have a conversation about how businesses worked, and that really kind of resonated with me as well. And I remember when Microsoft Access first came out, suddenly you could take the results of modeling what businesses look like and build them very quickly and have 20 people operating on the same system, and that was just incredibly powerful. And then I think as each of the technology generations come, you just see these massive opportunities. And I remember the aha moment, one of the big ones for me, was when you could write a piece of software that lived on a web server, and without anyone installing something, they just log in and they can do work. Yeah. And it was like, man, that's infinite scale.
Yeah. And our careers are mirrors in many ways. I was in an accounting firm, and I was automating payroll taxes for the firm, whereas before we were making money doing payroll taxes with typewriters, and we were automating. So I got some of those same sort of ahas that you're talking about. It just completely changes the whole way of thinking about doing accounting, doing business operations, and that just really turns me on. So I'm glad somebody like you came along to actually, well, the way I look at it is opt in fully and create the rest of the things that need to happen in order to bring about the folks.
But there's people like me in each generation, right? So Scott Cook at Intuit,
sure,
passionate about small business, change the world. Craig Winkler from MYOB, and one of some of the highlights of my career is meeting those sort of people who did it in their generation of technology.
Right.
And I think we're all very similar in that we all love small business and passionate about them. Because the thing that's different with small business from enterprise software is it's real people. And the CPA community, we meet them, and you get to know them. These are real people. And I think we all share that passion for making their lives better.
Mm-hmm. So, Rod, somewhere in your past, I'm sure you had some difficulties. Maybe you were starting a company, it wasn't going well. Maybe you were advising a client in your services business. Things weren't going well at some point, I'm sure. Tell me how you get across the humps of life where it's just not working. How do you get over those humps? What do you do?
Yeah, so probably the biggest thing that I've had to deal with through my working career is a stutter. Mm-hmm. And right through my early 20s, I could hardly get a word out. So when you're obviously full of ideas and all that sort of stuff, that was an incredibly frustrating time. And I remember being in meetings, and you have that creeping introduction of death, waiting to say a name, and you can't even get your name out. So that was one of those really hard things at a personal level that I've had to deal with. And even now, I do a bit of TV, doing some camera work now, I do some radio. And the fear of doing that is something that's sort of still praised. People say you're scared of public
You're such
speaking.
a confident person. It's
well, because I'm doing it so much, and I think that's what happened. I just sort of crashed through it. But that's been one of the as I've been doing all this stuff, that's always something that's always been there all the way through. And I think I've done 2 or 3 different businesses now. One of the big things that I learned was these are definitely team efforts, and having diversity of talent. Making sure that you're working with people you enjoy working with, and that you have complementary skills. You don't want everyone the same.
Right.
So I'm definitely the get things started, have the great vision, and with this business really made sure we put great operating people inside the business. And I think business is all about people. It's a huge amount of fun. You spend a lot of time with those people, getting a great team, and making sure you're filling that senior team out, and all the way through the business with complementary skills has been good. So the businesses I haven't enjoyed is when we haven't kind of had that really humming team at the top. And so with everything I've sort of done, recently, it's all about making sure you're working with great people.
The right people in the right places. So you said once, I love to quote you every now and then because I've watched some of the things you've talked about in speeches and so forth. You said once, A's hire A's and B's hire C's. Can you tell me what you're talking about?
Yeah, so what we found is if you want to grow quickly, you can't compromise on culture and the quality of people. And so, one of the guys on our board, Sam Morgan, quoted this to me: A's hire A's and B's hire C's. Mm-hmm. And what that's saying is you want to make sure that the people who are hiring the best people. If you have people that aren't right at that top level, they won't hire the top level themselves. Mm-hmm. And quickly you see the quality go through. And one of the most amazing things, we're up in San Fran where we are now in XeroCon last year, and I met 50 new Xeros where I wasn't even their great grand hirer. There was, 3 or 4 people down the chain had hired them, and they were completely on brand, completely on culture. We felt like friends straight away, and that was such a neat moment because we had, kept that quality level all the way through.
And you call them zeros.
Yeah.
So an employee at Xero is a zero.
Yeah, I think this comes. I think this comes down to what are you trying to do? These next generation companies. So, to build a big company now, you don't need a lot of infrastructure, and the tools make it so easy to do. So we're seeing these next generation companies where you're taking people from great organizations. We've got quite a lot of our leaders are from Microsoft, from Google. These are high quality companies coming into these very lean businesses where there's almost no grown-ups. You've grown up with the internet, like we don't have any PAs or EAs. I don't even have a desk.
Yeah.
You just do your work. You work from home. You try to pick up your kids in the morning if you're at home. You travel a lot. These are next generation, very nimble, kind of global from day one companies.
Yeah, that's great. How did you come up with the name Xero?
Well, we struggled with the name when we started, and our kind of working title was Accounting 2.0. And which was a terrible name, but that was kind of what we were. We thought we were the next generation, and this was the business.
That would have been the easy name, Accounting 2.0.
Yeah. But everyone said, well, what happens when 3 comes out? So that kind of didn't work. And we were thinking about who are the big companies, and in our space, SAP, 3letter.com, we knew we wouldn't get out. We really wanted a 4letter.com. Someone thought of Xero with a Z, and we started discussing it actually, and with the person who owned the domain, it was $100,000 to get started. And we ended up someone said, well, let's try it with an X. And it turned out it was a guy in New York who wasn't using the Xero.com domain name. He was kind of using it for FTP. So we phoned him up and said, would you like to sell it? He said, well, I've turned down $10,000 before. And so we tried to take the money out of the equation and said, well, what about if we give you a couple of business class tickets to New Zealand or something? And he said, actually, that sounds interesting. Turned out he was just having a baby, and his wife said, take the money. So finally, after about 3 or 4 months, we had a name that we could do something with, and it seems to have worked. Breaks the cardinal rule, though. You always want to have a business that starts with A.
Interesting. Well, I sure appreciate that you've spent this time with me today, and I wish you really well in your future and your company. It's just going like crazy. So look forward to seeing you in November at our conference, and maybe several times between now and then.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Doug.
Thank you. So thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time.